Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kimanya. Yeah, Tukore. Sava. Okay. So now, this evening, our dear, respected Mukta Purush Prabhu, this is him here, he is in charge here. He has asked us to talk something about, well, you could say about what is called Ritvik, but in a more general sense, on the subject of spiritual master, disciple, guru, disciple, how these things work. So he asked, and we of course said yes, if that's what you want. So here we are. And I wonder how many of you have heard this term, Ritvik, before? Put your hand up if you have heard and you know something about it. We have 1, 2, 3, we have 4, we have 5, 6, it looks like. And put your hand up if you have not heard this term Ritvik before. We have 1, we have 2, we have 3. Put your hand up if you're just not going to answer one way or the other. Okay, so a few of you have definitely heard, yeah? And some of you have definitely not heard, right? Definitely not heard. Okay, fine. Just so we know, because we don't want to start talking about something just foreign, totally like, what you could say might be irrelevant. What we'll do though, to start off, we will start off in a very nice way. We will start in a wonderful way. You should use the more recent version. This is a very old version. Okay, so it's okay. I will read now a verse from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I am going to read famous verse, so famous, about Guru and disciple in Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, text 34. Some of you know that verse. We have some Shastris here, Shastric scholars, Bhagavad Gita experts. Any here? Okay. This is really one of the most important verses and one of the most popular in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Translation: just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master Inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. I think we have all heard this verse before, yeah? It's not the first time. This really is very foundational verse in Bhagavad Gita. So I think I'll just say some words about this. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhastritya Deshatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, so this is chapter 4, verse 34. Oh, okay, this is a new Bhagavad Gita. There were some errors, actually, in this version here, which I read from, although I corrected the errors as I read it. Yeah, so we don't need to read it again, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so yes. No. Well, I should say that it is part of the Vedic tradition, the Krishna conscious tradition, coming from Krishna way back, millions of years ago. It is the tradition, it is just the way things are done, that the knowledge is handed down through the generations, from one generation to the next. Naturally, really. This is how it works. Krishna first instructed Lord Brahma. If you're familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam a little, the story is described there. It's also mentioned to some degree in Brahma Samhita. These are two books which are very much available in this movement to be read and should be read. So there it describes Lord Brahma, many millions of years ago, in the beginning of creation. He was the first living being. He was born. He appeared on the lotus coming from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. So Lord Brahma appeared there on top of the lotus, in the middle, somewhere in the middle of the universe. There were no planetary systems. There was nothing really. No planetary systems, no other living beings other than the Lord himself, who was down at the bottom, and Lord Brahma at that point could not see them. So therefore you could say Lord Brahma was alone. He was alone. And he had just appeared there. He didn't know Where am I? How did I get here? Who am I? What should I do now that I'm here? In other words, Lord Brahma was in ignorance. He was in ignorance. He was just not aware of these essential points. Who am I? Where did I come from? What direction should I move in? What should I do? What should I make my goal in life? He didn't know. So what happened was, he's sitting there on top of the lotus and just wondering. He was perplexed. What is the situation? And then he decided that let me climb down the lotus, down to the bottom. This lotus must have come from somewhere. Let me see. Maybe there's someone down there. So he started climbing down the lotus stem. And as he was climbing down, and still thinking, what's going on? So he then heard two syllables. He heard the word being spoken, ta-pa, ta-pa, ta-pa. And even though, like we say, he was in ignorance, he had just appeared, he had not been to school, anything like that at all. He had just appeared. But still, by the mercy of the Lord, he understood what those two syllables meant, tapa. You should perform tapasya, austerity. Meditate, practice austerity and meditate, and then everything will be revealed to you. So he went back up and sat there and performed austerity and meditated. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him. Yes, and then the Lord instructed him. And in other words, Krishna himself became the Guru of Lord Brahma. And when we look at our disciplic succession, if you look in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, do you all have the Bhagavad Gita at home? Yes? No? Anyway, look, any naughty devotee who does not have a Bhagavad Gita at home, oh dear, you must take one tonight. So at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the introduction, right here, yes, see, in this version, you see this is the one we normally distribute nowadays, a sort of orangey color cover. You'll see here, right at the end of the introduction, it says, the disciplic succession. And number one is Krishna. And number two is Brahma. Right. So Krishna enlightened Lord Brahma, and so Krishna is the Guru of Lord Brahma, directly Krishna himself. And then Lord Brahma, instructed by Krishna, Lord Brahma meditated, rendered devotional service, in the form of creating the universe, creating the planets, the species, and that was his service. Like your service might be to be a pujari, I don't know. And someone else, Mataji's service might be to cook for Krishna. Everyone has a service. All devotees should have some service. So Lord Brahma's service was to create the universe. So Krishna instructed him and told him, you create the universe. Create the planets, the species of life. And Lord Brahma said, yes, and he did that. And just at the beginning, before he started, you know what he did? He spoke the famous verses from Brahma Samhita. It begins, I think, with verse 29, if I remember correctly, and goes up to about verse 55 or something, up around in the 50s. And these are the verses. Each verse ends, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. You know the verses I'm referring to? I'm sure many of you have heard some of those verses before. This is Lord Brahma glorifying Krishna in so many ways after Krishna revealed himself to him and before Brahma began the process of creation. So Krishna then is the guru of Brahma. And previously Brahma was in ignorance, but Krishna enlightened him. And then Brahma became the next guru. And his disciple, or at least his main disciple, was actually his son, one of his sons, Narada Muni. So again, if you look at this list here, disciplic succession, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, you'll see Krishna, Brahma, Narada. Then Narada instructed Vyasadeva, who's the author of the Vedic literatures. And that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter, I think 5, 6, 7, like that, 4, 5, 6, 7, those chapters in the beginning of the first canto Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Narada instructing Vyas. And Vyas, if you read that, you'll see Vyas, he was also a little in ignorance or a little confused. Vyasadeva. He had compiled most of the Vedic literature. Well, he thought he had compiled all the Vedic literature. He thought. But he was still not satisfied. He was just not satisfied. And he was wondering, what's wrong? I've even compiled Vedanta. Vedanta means the end of knowledge. Veda means knowledge, Anta means end. So he thought, I have concluded all knowledge, but I'm not satisfied. I'm still feeling disturbed. Something is lacking. And Narada Muni came, and that is described in detail in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada explains to Vyasadeva that you have talked about so many things, but you have not talked about Krishna sufficiently or clearly enough. You must do that. So Vyasadeva said, right. And then he did that, and this is how we got Srimad Bhagavatam. So in other words, Vyasadeva was, at least to some degree, in some confusion, to some degree, and Narada enlightened him. So Narada is the guru of Vyasa. Then Vyasa is the guru of Madhvacharya. And then gradually the disciplic succession comes down to today. So in Bhagavad Gita, here we read a verse from the 4th chapter, verse 34. In the beginning of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains how the knowledge is transmitted. Now, I don't know how many of you really are Bhagavad Gita scholars. If you're not, you should try to become one, or at least, read it seriously. But in chapter 4, verse 1, what does Krishna say? Devotees. What is 4:1 Bhagavad Gita? That's it. Imam vipasvate yoga proktavam avyayam vivasva manave praha manor ikshvakaveda. So Krishna saying, I instructed this knowledge. Just check here. I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku. This is a different disciplic succession. Different succession. This is starting with Vivasvan, the sun god. Our line starts from Krishna to Brahma. Then there's, for example, the Rudra Sampradaya, from Krishna to Lord Shiva. They're different lines. Krishna's here mentioning another line. He spoke it to the sun god, and then the sun god spoke it to Manu, and Manu spoke it to Ikshvaku. Lord Ram appeared in the Ikshvaku dynasty, which is the dynasty coming from the sun. Krishna's, okay. So then in verse 2 of chapter 4, Krishna, having said that I gave the knowledge to Vivasvan, who gave it to Manu, who gave it to Ikshvaku, Krishna then explains the system by which the knowledge is distributed through the generations. This is chapter 4, verse 2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo vidu sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. And then he goes on to say, that line from Viverspan, it was broken. That line. Although our line through Brahma was never broken. That line through Viverspan, it became broken. That's a long story. We'll tell you that some other day. The curse of Gautama. Yeah. So the Krishna is saying, if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita, what should you do? Should you go to the local bookstore and buy a copy of Bhagavad Gita? Not exactly. You should approach a spiritual master who is coming in the line of disciplic succession from him, from Krishna. Yes. This is how people, generation after generation, through history, this is how they get access to Krishna consciousness, to the knowledge, and to the whole process, through the current members of the disciplic succession. So, the subject is discussed in more detail. Here Krishna has just briefly, in a couple of verses, mentioned some of the very foundational points. The whole process is discussed in more detail. For example, in Nectar of Devotion, little more detail. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, in more detail. So there it is described, there are 3 types of gurus. Now we're getting a little technical. Are you ready? Fasten your seatbelts. We don't want to confuse anyone. There are 3 types of gurus. The first is called, in Sanskrit, Vartana Pradarshaka Guru. And this means the guru who, first of all, shows you the way, points out, take that route. In other words, the first person, first people who explain how you can begin the process, how you can become a devotee. This is called Vartana Pradarshika, which literally means he who shows you the path, points out, there it is, see, take that path. In other words, it is right at the beginning. And there is an example, a very important and very clear example in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto. Any of you know who is that example? Well, it is the mother of Dhruva Maharaj. You know, I don't know how many of you have read Srimad Bhagavatam very much, but in the 4th canto is the story of Dhruva Maharaj. He was a small boy, and his father had 2 wives. I hope none of you men have 2 wives. Any? 2, 3? Please don't do that. Just stick with one. Eka Patni Vrata. Anyway, he had 2. He had 2. And one of them was like the favorite. And the other one was like, you know, not taken very seriously. Dhruva, his mother, was the second one. She was like, not taken very seriously. So one time, Dhruva wanted to climb onto his father's lap at the same time as the son of the first wife also wanted to climb up. So the father accepted the son of the first wife, and Dhruva, he put him down. He sort of rejected him, just like that. Put him down and accepted the son of the first wife. And the first wife told Dhruva, just see, you're out of it. You're useless. And she said, you know what you need to do? In your next birth, you have to be born as my son. Then the king will accept you. So Dhruva, he was only 5 years old, or even 4 years old, he's just a little boy. He got so upset. My father rejected me like that. And he thought, I'm going to teach him a lesson. I am going to get a kingdom bigger than his, and I'll show him that I'm important. So he went to his mother. Her name was Suniti. And he asked his mother that, how can I get a bigger kingdom than my father? He explained what happened, and his mother said, what can I do? I'm not so important. And Dhruva said, I want to get a bigger kingdom than my father. How can I do it? And his mother said, well, I don't know. She said, why don't you ask God? Because maybe he can help you. And Dhruva said, right, where is he? and Suniti, the mother, said, well, I have heard that when people are looking for God, they go to the forest. So maybe he's in the forest. In other words, she literally showed him the path. Go to the forest. So Dhruva, he's only 4 or 5 years old. He just said, right, and that was it. He was off into the forest. He was so serious. I want to find God. And his mother had given him this instruction, showed him the path, go to the forest. In other words, it's just a very beginning stage thing. And then Narada went to the forest, and Narada met, Dhruva went to the forest, and there he met Narada Muni. And Narada Muni instructed him further. So this is first type of guru is Bhaktivedanta Pradharshika. Then another type, a second type, is called Siksha Guru. Siksha means instructions, guidance. So Siksha Guru means the guru who gives you practical instructions. Do this, don't do that, and how you can develop your life. And then third type is called Diksha Guru. Diksha means basically initiation. The guru who gives initiation. So there are these 3 types of gurus. on like this, that someone who's interested in spiritual life, now they're thinking, how am I going to learn? How am I going to really make my life spiritual? So now they're looking around how to get some guidance. So then they meet a guru, or say a preacher. They meet a preacher, and they take some instruction from him. And if it's a good preacher, then they understand, yes, they understand who is Krishna, what is the process, they become devotees. Then generally what happens is that instructing guru generally gives initiation and becomes, so he's already Siksha Guru, he's already giving instructions, and so the prospective devotee is learning and becoming inspired and taking up the process under his direction. So that is already Siksha Guru, but then the Siksha Guru usually also becomes the Diksha Guru. Usually. Not always, but usually. The Siksha Guru, or the main Siksha Guru, becomes the Diksha Guru, or initiating Guru also. And the relationship continues. Like in my case, I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada, September 1973. Haribol. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Krishna. And I'm still taking instruction from Srila Prabhupada. We just read from his book. They were taking instructions from Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada is my Diksha and Siksha Guru, main one. I also take instructions from some very senior other disciples of Prabhupada. Anyway, if you Govinda Maharaj, I listen to his classes sometimes. Indrajita Maharaj, Giriraj Maharaj, who was here for many years, and various others. So I'm taking instructions from them, but the main one is Srila Prabhupada. Plus, I was initiated by Prabhupada. So, So therefore there are these three types of gurus. The one who just gives some initial idea, and then the one or ones who are giving the real instructions which are molding our lives, and then the one who gives initiation. Now, in terms of this Ritvik idea, and we don't want to confuse anyone who just doesn't know anything about it at all, create a problem which didn't exist in your mind. But the Ritvik idea is that someone who is no longer living will give initiation. This is the idea. Many of them, the Ritviks, those who believe this, many of them will not just say that someone who's not living, but they'll just say, Prabhupada. But the principle is that someone who is not living, as in terms of as we are living in our physical bodies. So Srila Prabhupada obviously is not living in that sense, physical sense. Neither is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Gaurkishore Das Babaji, Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, etc., etc., etc. these other members of our disciplic succession, they're not physically present. Of course, even though Prabhupada is not physically present, his books are, his lectures, his tapes, and so on, recordings, they are available, so he can certainly act as Siksha Guru. But in the disciplic succession, initiation as such is given by people who are living. Yeah. This is how it works. Every generation, those like Lord Brahma, he was the disciple. He was confused. He became a disciple. He became enlightened. He became Guru. And then, next one is Narada Muni. He was also not clear. Lord Brahma, that's there in the Bhagavatam. He approached Lord Brahma, Narada Muni. It's in the second canto, it's about what? Chapter 7 or 8. And he says, I always thought that you were supreme, but now I see you are worshipping someone else. Is there someone higher than you? And so Lord Brahma then instructed Narada and initiated Narada. Narada was in some ignorance, some confusion like that. And then we mentioned about Narada Muni when he met Vyasadeva. So Narada became Guru, initiated Vyasadeva. So in other words, the system is, in terms of initiation as such, today's disciple is tomorrow's Guru. This generation of disciples will be the next generation of Gurus in terms of initiation specifically. So this is how it works. This is how at least in terms of initiation as such, how it works. Initiation is given by people who are living, and although instructions can be given in the Bhagavatam, we have the words of Lord Brahma, we have the words of Krishna himself, we have the words of Vyasadeva, we have the words of so many great personalities. So like that, they are acting as our Siksha Gurus. All these different people, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya is acting as our Siksha Guru. So many instructions are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nectar of devotion, the whole science of how to be a devotee. It's by the original text is by Srila Rupa Goswami. So we read Nectar of Devotion, we're taking instruction, Siksha, from Srila Rupa Goswami. He is acting as our Siksha Guru. And like that. Sanatana Goswami wrote Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which our BBT has recently published. So we read that. We're reading the instructions of Sanatana Goswami. He's acting as our Siksha Guru. But it doesn't work that we can decide if we want to be initiated. Well, I think I'll be initiated by Rupa Goswami. Doesn't work like that. I think I'll be initiated by Lord Brahma. Doesn't work like that. Take the instructions. You can take the instructions. You must take the instructions. But to actually be initiated, then that is done by a person who's living, and this is how it works. And this is how it has been working for millions of years. This is the process. In ISKCON, of course, Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. And his instructions are foundational for all members of ISKCON. You know, we give class from Srila Prabhupada's books. In 100 years, when the devotees have Srimad Bhagavatam class, they'll give class from Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam. When they give Bhagavad Gita class, they'll give class from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So like that, Srila Prabhupada occupies a very important, extremely important position as, like you could say, the Supreme Siksha Guru. The Supreme Siksha Guru for everyone who's a member of ISKCON and for all people who will be going into the future. Prabhupada said his books would be the law books for humanity for 10,000 years. So in that sense, in the sense of giving instruction, Srila Prabhupada has that special position. And so we advise everyone, read Prabhupada's books, take shelter of the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. Whereas, you know, with Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Prabhupada's spiritual master, we don't really tell the devotees that, you know, you should really focus on them. And in that sense, make them like your main Siksha Guru. But we tell them, focus on Srila Prabhupada, on his books, his instructions. He is the Supreme Siksha Guru for everyone within ISKCON now and into the future and for the next so many thousands of years. So like this, Srila Prabhupada has very special position as Siksha Guru. But Diksha Guru, to give initiation, that is always the duty of the current generation. And Srila Prabhupada gave an example to illustrate the principle. The example is, it is the example of getting married. When you're initiated, you make a commitment to the spiritual master, to the Guru. You make a commitment. You are my Guru, initiating Guru. And I'm not going to have another one. Like when you're married, you take vows, isn't it? You are my wife or husband, and I'm not going to take another one. Anyway, we know what Kali Yuga is like. Divorce is too common. What can you do? Well, such is life in the material world. But the idea is, when you marry a person, the idea is, this is it. That's it. This is the one. This is the one. You can only really marry a person who is alive. What do you think? A person should be alive. If they're not alive, well, it makes the relationship a little awkward, I'm sure. So yes, like that. The initiation is given by a living spiritual master, and it's a living relationship of interaction back and forth like that. It's a relationship, a practical relationship in which the guru, the Diksha guru, as we said earlier, normally he's the main Siksha guru, or at least he's definitely one of the main Siksha gurus. Definitely. So the value of having a living spiritual master in the sense of getting direction is, it's like this. In the Bhagavatam, there's one verse, Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naishtaki. It's in the second chapter of the first canto. I think it's maybe verse 18, something like that. So that verse is saying that by regularly attending Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service to the great devotees, one can make advancement. This is the idea. One can make advancement. The heart becomes cleansed by Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, hearing the Bhagavatam and serving the person Bhagavatam. The book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. The Srimad Bhagavatam and the advanced devotee. So, Prabhupada once was asked, which is more important, the book Bhagavat, Srimad Bhagavatam, or the person Bhagavat? And Srila Prabhupada answered, the person Bhagavat. Prabhupada said, because he can pull your ear. You get the idea? The person Bhagavat can pull your ear. In other words, if you're reading the book and you come across something you don't like, you can always close the book and put it away. But you can't just turn off a person. Yeah. And, you know, the devotees, the preachers, they're usually quite persistent. And they keep on the case of the disciple. What are you doing? What are you not doing? Don't be a nonsense. Improve yourself. This is the business. This is the relationship. So it helps. It helps a lot to have someone like that who's kind of chasing you a little and checking on you and correcting you. Therefore, in that sense, a living spiritual master, at least one who is involved in your life in practical ways, is very valuable, extremely valuable. So this is the system of disciplic succession. A person can have actually many Siksha gurus. A person can have many Siksha gurus, people who are giving instructions. In ISKCON, our main Siksha guru is Srila Prabhupada. But for giving initiation, as has been done for thousands and millions of years. It's done by a living person. But then Prabhupada, as the Supreme Siksha Guru, it may happen, and in some cases it does happen, that some devotee, even though they are initiated by a living spiritual master and the relationship is good, but it happens sometimes that on the basis of instructions, on the basis of the siksha, that the devotee feels Prabhupada is more of an influence in my life. I'm getting more from the instructions of Srila Prabhupada than I am getting from the devotee who initiated me. You know, it's a very personal thing. It's a very personal thing. It also happens. We'll wind up. We'll wind up. It also, you know, another thing that happens is that someone is initiated by a guru and the relationship is okay, no problems. But the disciple later meets another devotee, means living devotee, who they find they're getting more inspiration and guidance from more than their initiating spiritual master. This also happens. It's not so common, but it happens. It definitely happens. And at least provided it's done in a nice way, there's nothing really wrong with that. There's nothing really wrong with that. If the initiating spiritual master is in good standing, he cannot be rejected. But in terms of instructions, one can take more instructions from another person with the permission of the initiating spiritual master Diksha Guru. That's possible. And there are definitely cases. And you know, to be quite frank, I also have a few disciples here and there, initiated disciples. And there's a few of them who have accepted other gurus as Siksha gurus, and we have a very nice relationship. Nothing wrong with it. But they're taking instructions a lot from another guru as Siksha guru, and I also, there's a few initiated disciples of other gurus who take more instruction from myself. These things happen, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's done nicely. And like I said, there are some devotees who are initiated by current gurus in ISKCON, but they really take shelter more of Srila Prabhupada in the sense of his instructions. And we encourage everyone, please read Prabhupada's books. Please take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's instructions. We encourage everybody, all of our own disciples, and just everybody, take shelter of Srila Prabhupada. He is the Supreme Siksha Guru. But like we said, just like you cannot marry a person who is physically dead, it just doesn't work like that. You can read a book written, just some ordinary book. I read just a few weeks ago, I just noticed It was, I think, was it the 200th anniversary of the birth of Jane Austen. Did you ever hear of her? Pride and Prejudice. Yeah, 200th anniversary. And people are still reading her books. Millions of people. She died, I don't know when it was, but a long time ago. You can read her books, but you can't marry her. You just can't do it. It just doesn't work like that. So, in initiation, there are specific vows in which the relationship is cemented. The relationship is cemented. And therefore a living person is there. A living person is there to be the guru, to accept the vows, and then to monitor and check how is the person doing on an ongoing basis. Hands-on involvement in the life of the devotee. So, the Ritvik people, and again, if you've never heard of Ritvik, I don't want to confuse you at this point, but they say that you can be initiated by Prabhupada, or in other words, you can be initiated by anybody, actually, who's not living physically. But it's just not there. In the disciplic succession. It never happened. It's never happened. It has never happened. Ever. Taking instructions from one generation across generations, that happens a lot. You see in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada dedicates his Bhagavad Gita to Baladev Vijayabhushan, who actually lived like 350 years ago, something like that. And if you read through Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita purports with the purports of Baladev Vijayabhushan next to it, you'll see a lot of what Prabhupada said, he's just taking out of Baladev Vijayabhushan. So much. In other words, for Prabhupada, at least particularly in regard to his Bhagavad Gita, for Prabhupada, Baladev Vijayabhushan was acting as an important Siksha Guru. Yeah. So to have Siksha Guru even across generations, that may be there. But Diksha initiation, you don't really do it. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
How's that? Are you okay? Did you survive? Anyone more confused now than before we began?
Some devotees, they came across one of the devotees was preaching Ritvik here.
Oh, I see.
So, put some confusion of themselves.
Oh, okay. Any questions? I mean, Mukta Purush raised an interesting point. I wasn't so aware of it. Some of you have actually met some of these people who are advocating this idea. Any specific questions on the subject? Okay. Can we say, if we are not following this disciplic succession from Krishna as our Guru, then we're wasting our time and existence. even though so many new temples are built and Mauritius installed around the world. Okay, I see. If we are not following the disciplic succession from Krishna, are we wasting our time even if we're attending some other temple which is also not in the disciplic succession? Are we wasting our time? I don't know who asked the question, but did I get it right? Who asked the question? Anyway, okay. Are we wasting our time? Well, you know, in other words, if you go to the local Hindu temple, I guess, you know, there's so many Hindu temples in Mauritius, and all over the world there's just so many. There's tons and tons and tons. And some of them you'll see Radha and Krishna are there, in some cases at least. So if you're attending one of those temples which is not connected with disciplic succession, are you wasting your time? I would say, you know what I would say is, you are certainly not making the best use of your time. You're definitely not making the best use, because, you know, the instructions that you'll get there, how to live, what to do, how to develop your spiritual life, the instructions you'll get there will not be of the same quality as the instructions coming in the disciplic succession, and in our cases through Prabhupada, because Prabhupada, as our Supreme Siksha Guru, founder Acharya, Prabhupada has taken the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, the instructions of Krishna consciousness, and presented them in such a way that it works. That if a person applies Krishna consciousness as given by Prabhupada, they become devotees. Prabhupada made the point that before he came to the West, there were already a number of versions of Bhagavad Gita available in English. Actually, there were many versions. Even I read one such other version before I became a devotee. I read the Penguin version. I read the Penguin version of Bhagavad Gita. And I tell you what, by the time I finished the book, I didn't know if I was coming or going, or what was happening. It was just, it sounded very clever. It's like being confused in a very clever way. So Prabhupada made that point. Before he presented Bhagavad Gita as it is, there were many Bhagavad Gitas available in English, but we're going to carry on. Is that okay? Well, carry on. So, Asize, reste. So, yeah, Prabhupada said there's so many versions of Bhagavad Gita already in English, but not one of them produced one devotee of Krishna. Not one of them produced one devotee of Krishna. All these many versions of Bhagavad Gita. Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadesi Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan Shri Srinath Jai Shri Govinda Ki Jai. So you see, when you get the knowledge coming in disciplic succession, then it really works, it has a real effect. So therefore, yeah, if you're attending some other temple and then not explaining Bhagavad Gita as it is, but just some other idea. You know, you get many people, they present Bhagavad Gita, and they say, yes, we're all God. I'm not your God. And some other people explain Bhagavad Gita and they say, there's no God. Your mother-in-law is God. So you're not going to really benefit very much from that. But when you get Bhagavad Gita as it is, and when you're taught Krishna consciousness on the basis of Bhagavad Gita as it is, by people who are following Bhagavad Gita as it is, then your life becomes transformed. Which way ISKCON is different from Ritvik of Bangalore Temple? Well, you know, I think that what I said for the last hour, I mean, that's the basic idea. That's the basic idea. You know, really, there's just one point. And the point is giving initiation. The other points, there's not really so much difference, but at this point there's big difference. That according to the Parampara, the practice which has been there, and what is there in scripture, of initiation being given by current gurus in each generation after generation. So, in our ISKCON temples, this is the system that we apply. But it's like a concocted idea. Someone dreamt up this idea. Hey, even though Prabhupada left this world, 1977, hey, maybe we can be initiated by Prabhupada. It's a sort of creative Kali Yuga idea, basically. Take instruction from Prabhupada, read his books, follow his instructions. In that way, he's your Siksha Guru or your main Siksha Guru. But initiation has to be given by a living person. Yes.
We meet many guru Maharaj, we meet many gurus,
Okay.
in Buddhism succession. And sometimes you meet one particular guru and you're very inspired, you want initiation from this guru. And then you meet other gurus and then you feel the same, from another guru. And you're very confused.
Okay.
You don't know what to do. So
Good question.
how do you know?
I like that.
Which guru to choose,
Yes. Yes, right. Well, you know, the good news is, like we mentioned, you can have any number of Siksha Gurus. So when you are eventually initiated by a particular one, you know, in this way, there's a difference between initiation and marriage. When you're married to one person, you have to reject the other people. Right? But when you're initiated by a spiritual master, you can still keep relationships with the others who you're inspired by as Siksha Gurus. You can. And actually, you should. But when it comes to making the choice, if there's, say, 5 or 10 or whatever, some number. You know, you have to do two things really. One is you have to think about it and use your intelligence. And the other is you have to pray to Krishna to see. Of these different Guru Maharajas, they're all very nice, and I really appreciate them all. But who of them is really the most suitable for me. Yeah. And then there could be different considerations, like in one case, you might get more personal association. In another case, you might get a lot less. You follow? So, it depends on the individual, but at least that is a consideration. Many devotees, not all, but many, they really feel they need like regular personal association, regular personal guidance. For others, it's not so important. They can just listen to lectures and, something like that. So it depends on the individual, but basically what one should do is try and consider who really inspires me the most, actually. And then, there may be practical considerations, like how much association I'll get. And occasionally, I can say, occasionally we meet devotees, and they're the sort of person who really needs personal association from their guru, with their guru. But they're thinking, this person or that person, and the other person is someone they will not get association from. And if they are that type of person who needs the association, then generally we'll tell them, look, you'll probably be better off being initiated by the person you're going to get plenty of personal association from. Am I answering your question?
Yeah. Because I many devotees I've met, they said they were confused what they got the dream, which they were praying a lot to Krishna, and then they got the sign, this dream is, saying to the guru. So if you don't get the sign,
Yeah, Krishna will inspire you. If you're sincere, Krishna will give you the intelligence to make the right decision. And when you make that decision, it does not mean that the others who you didn't choose, that now you're just rejecting them and just say goodbye to them. No. You continue the relationship with them as your Siksha Gurus. And it's nice, because then you've got a whole team of people looking after you. Right? A lot more shelter. It's nice. Thank you. Yes, anybody else? Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
I'd like to thank Maharaj for his nice lecture. Good power and everybody. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Dhanyavad.
Thank you for coming, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Nice lecture, inspiration.
See you all next time.
Right.
If I can be of any assistance, let me know.